Welcome to the Kelowna Real Estate Podcast. I'm your mortgage broker host, Taylor Atkinson.
And I'm your real estate agent host, Matt Glenn. What's shaking today, Taylor?
Just got down from the ski hill, spent the last week up there. It was
Yes, you
glorious.
have.
Yeah.
That was awesome. So it's been freezing down here. What's the temperature been like up there?
It was pretty cold up there too, but we had a couple sunny days and when the sun was just beating off the snow, it kind of warmed you up a little bit.
Nice.
But very interesting kind of segue into today's guest, because we recorded this about 5 weeks ago. So Mike Shaw, who was just like an absolute awesome guy to have on. He was a competitive skier and was coaching for the Olympic team, got in a pretty tragic accident and became paralyzed.
I do think it was tragic. It didn't seem tragic talking to him.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess his outlook on life was optimistic moving forward, but I imagine it's a bit of a difficult time when you have an accident like that. But anyways, I guess the segue I was referring to is, we spoke to him about 5 weeks ago and talking about skiing, and his big thing is gratitude. That's how he basically recovered from being paralyzed, which, spoiler alert, he is functional. He walked up the stairs to the office.
Like literally a quadriplegic who walked up the stairs to record the episode.
Yeah. Which I didn't even know was possible.
I didn't know that was possible either.
Yeah. I don't know what the stat is, like 1 in a million or something, but it's incredible. So his big thing was like, hey, how I recovered was gratitude. And, picked out whether it was a positive thing that happened or a negative thing, like figured out how gratitude could like elevate him to that next level. That was this week as well. Like I've been kind of thinking a lot about that stuff, but trying to teach my 3-year-old how to ski, me being on skis as well, since I don't ski, I'm a snowboarder, but like I was teaching him how to ski, and there was great days, which I had a lot of gratitude towards. And there was bad days where like, I don't know what happened. The previous day he was great at skiing, loved it. And the next day he did not want to ski. He wanted to ice skate.
Yeah.
But I had to like really practice gratitude, be like, you know what?
Strike when the iron's hot, dude.
At least I'm here and like with my son and we're having fun. And finished off the week where Emily and I took him up the plaza chair, and because we were kind of struggling with the magic carpet, he just wouldn't he wasn't really jiving with it in the last couple days. And I was like, let's just avoid it and we'll like hype up the chair. So we went up the chair. We had 3 great runs. He absolutely loved it. It was beaming.
How do you like the chair?
Oh, I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
But on the last run, like, man, my legs were burning. My back was killing. Like I'm just doing pizzas, like trying to hold this kid up on skis that I don't ski on. Yeah. And 20 feet to the bottom, I kind of had to turn to like, I was at the edge of the run and I had to like come back the other way, and I kind of slingshotted him a little bit with the pole and he face planted hard. He just, but still a great week, like you got to just.
Does he think that?
He does. Yeah. We solved it with hot chocolate and marshmallows.
Nice. That does solve a lot of ills.
Yeah. But anyways, like the point is, listen to the show. You guys are going to love Mike. Really, really cool guy, and like the mindset is just incredible. So I think you're gonna love the show.
Yeah, mindset over everything. That's awesome.
Relevant to like real estate right now, as we were talking, is there's a lot of bad media or a lot of volatile media, especially with like tariffs.
Damn tariffs.
But if you look at it in an optimistic way, as you were saying, Matt, and previous shows, there's opportunities in these times. So
there's always opportunities. Winston Churchill, my favorite historical figure, says, never waste a good crisis. So it's like, it makes sense. There's always an opportunity in every situation. If the tariffs come, which they probably won't, but who knows, they might. There's going to be hurting out there, but there'll be opportunities too. So, yeah.
Yeah. And in regards to that too, we are having Brendan Ogmanson back on, BCREA chief economist, and he's got a bunch of scenarios to review on tariffs. So Matt and I won't even really talk during that episode. We'll just let Brendan.
Yeah. It's when you think about the repercussions, it's just like, it's mind boggling. You think, okay, interest rates are obviously going to go down, but then you think, inflation is going to go up. So does that mean interest rates are going to go up? Like, what's going on here? So we don't know. So we got the champ himself, Brendan Ogmanson, on to tell us what's up. But even he's not that sure about it, right? Like, I guess no one really knows, but he would have the best idea.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's done quite a bit of data on figuring out potential outcomes. But again, like this stuff is like everything in the past 5 years. It's all been very drastic changes.
I just want to say this comment. I think if the tariffs do come, I think what Canada needs to do is send out an army of salespeople to every other country, right? To the east, over the Pacific, to all the Asian countries, South America, Europe, and just start selling our shit everywhere else except for the US, right? Like, doesn't that make sense?
You would be like the lead candidate for that job. Get you out there.
Get me on there, man.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't even know what I'm selling. Just put it in my backpack and I'll come back with contracts for everybody. Honestly, though, I think we just go out there and just sell ourselves to every other country because, like, that would be an amazing opportunity. So
yeah,
that's what I think.
There
that's
you go.
My
Right
political sense there, right there. So
yeah, I love it.
This episode, like every episode, is sponsored by Century 21 Assurance Realty, best brokerage in town, best brokerage in BC, in my opinion, taking over the interior. We're in Kelowna, West Kelowna, Vernon, Kamloops, Kootenays, Shuswap. If you need an agent in the interior BC, call Century 21 Assurance Realty. Or if you're a realtor looking to switch brokerages or a new realtor looking for a brokerage to start out with, we got great training programs. That's what trained me up. It's the reason why I'm just so damn successful right now. Just kidding about that. But yeah, we are a good spot to be. If you have any questions at all, give us a show.
Hey, I got a question. Super Bowl's happening in about an hour and a half. Who do you think is going to win?
I want the Eagles to win, but I don't think you can beat Mahomes. I'm comfortable right now saying that Mahomes is going to win.
I'm the same, but I just like, come on, man.
You know what I want to see in this Super Bowl? And like, this is funny because you guys are going to be listening to this after it's recorded, but I want Saquon to have a 200-yard rushing game, if not 300. Just like absolutely go off. You know, like that's my main goal for this game. So
that's your goal. I love it.
Less important who wins, more important Saquon just has because that dude's a champ, man. Like he just like suffered for so many years in the worst franchise in the league and the Giants. Gets over to the Eagles and just has a stellar season. To be sweet to see him cap it off with the Super Bowl.
There you go. Some opportunity, you know. Yeah, it was a grind, but he was probably practicing gratitude, thinking, you know what, I'm playing in the NFL.
So. I think that's exactly right. So I would love to see him win the MVP tonight. That's what I'm hoping. So
okay. All right, guys. Well, enjoy the show, enjoy the game, and
enjoy the show.
Mike Shaw, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, boys. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Well, we like to just start our show with what's your perfect Friday look like? What do you do for productivity? What's kind of your daily routine? And what do you do for fun going into the weekend?
Cool. Perfect Friday would be skiing waist deep powder wherever I could get that in the backcountry. That's sort of one of my passions that I live for. And
that's
one
a small feat, thinking about your history. So
no kidding. It's a blessing to be able to explore the backcountry and slack country that we have nearby in the Okanagan. But perfect Friday on a regular week. I have a pretty consistent morning routine where I wake up between 5 and 5:30 and spend a bit of time for myself, either reading or just reflecting and enjoying a coffee. And I heard Steve on the last show say the exact same thing. And I'm like, oh man, he's on it too.
Recipe for success though.
Yeah, I usually start with that intentional time for myself, and then I'll get some physical activity in, whether it's a run or a workout, and then I'll dive into whatever I've got on that day. And my fulfillment comes from supporting others or helping them. Clinical counselor or a speaker. So I'm usually actively working an event or supporting individuals or organizations. And I think the fulfillment I get from that is what is the most rewarding and would be the answer that I'd probably lead with, is being helpful. And that fulfillment would be a perfect day.
Yeah.
What's your career? What do you tell people you do for a career right now?
It's a good question. One that I've taken a while to learn how to answer. But now I'm a clinical counselor and a professional speaker. I've done a number of different projects in the entrepreneurial space over the years. And so I've led with the entrepreneur title. I'm also an author. I've also been a consultant in like the safety industry. I've done a number of different things, but now my big driver is clinical counseling and speaking.
Nice. Taylor and I need a lot of counseling and need to learn how to speak.
Yeah. You won't be short of work here. How'd you get here? Like, obviously, Matt and I know your story, but kind of start from the beginning.
I grew up in the Okanagan and I love it here. It's amazing. The accessibility outside here to adventure is like no other. And I grew up doing all sorts of sports, but the one I fell in love with was freestyle skiing. And as a young person, I was a competitive athlete turned coach, and I worked my way up to coach the Canadian Olympic Development Halfpipe ski team. And in 2013, specifically on December 16th, 2013, my life changed forever. In a routine trick demonstration for a couple of my athletes, I performed a 720, 2 full rotations where you take off forwards and land forwards. But on landing, I ended up like landing what I call some punchy snow. You know what I mean when I say that? Like just, I punched through these soft layers or crusty layers of snow, and it ended up stopping my skis dead in my track, pitching me forward onto my head and neck, and my feet came up over top of my body, kind of like a scorpion's tail. Yeah. And then just this brief but sharp pop and pain in my neck. And then nothing. I tumbled downhill, slid to a stop, face down in the snow, screaming at what I thought was the top of my lungs, just like, no, 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 God, no. This brief but sharp pain in my neck. I can't move. I can't roll over. I can't feel anything in my body. I couldn't bounce back up to my feet like I'd done countless times before falling skiing. And my world in that moment came physically and figuratively crashing down.
Did you know what happened right away?
It was a really sobering event. Like my mental clarity was like, I wish I could reproduce that on a daily basis, because I'd never been more clear in my mind in that moment. They say like, your life flashes before your eyes in a near-death experience, because it's just searching for any kind of experience that's similar to that to try to pull from to help you. And so my mind was racing, but it was also very clear, because one of my first thoughts was, well, I'm lucky I didn't just have a concussion. At the same time, I'd spent about 6 or 7 months that year out with a concussion. But the thought went through my mind, like, I'm glad I'm not confused and paralyzed right now, because I figured that would be a lot harder. But I knew, because of one of my great friends and mentors and ski coach that was in my life had a spinal cord injury, broke his back, rocks the world from a wheelchair today. His name is Josh Dewick. So I thought of him immediately, and I thought of my situation. I knew the gravity of it. So I did know right away how bad it was. And yeah, it was difficult. Like, I thought about everything. I was like, I just ruined my parents' retirement. You know, like I was 26, I was 27 at the time. And so I was like, this is going to devastate my family. I knew in that moment that I'd probably lost skiing forever. Like every hope and dream, like wanting to go to the Olympics, which was my original dream as an athlete that I thought I might fulfill as a coach, like leading the next generation, that was gone. Would I ever ski again? Probably not. Would I ever have a family? Like, you know, kids? Yeah. Just everything was poof in an instant lost. And my identity, everything that I knew about myself was like wrapped up in this person who skied, and my actions spoke for themselves. You know, like it was, if you could hit the jump or ski the half pipe, it was what you could do, not necessarily who you were, that mattered. And so like my identity, my independence, everything was just gone.
So
rock bottom.
That happened in Denver, right?
Near Denver. I was in Summit County, Colorado. So near where Copper Mountain, Breckenridge, Keystone, Arifo Basin, North Star, there's a ton of resorts out that valley. But I was at Copper Mountain in the morning, and then we drove actually over to Keystone that afternoon. It happened at Keystone.
Then you were airlifted to Denver to the hospital, is that right?
Yeah, airlifted to Denver, had surgery that night. They surgically installed 2 titanium rods and 10 screws in my neck, fusing me from my 3rd vertebrae down to my 7th. You might say I've got a bit of a stiff neck now.
Jeez. Are the rods still there? Are they still there?
Yeah, it's a bad joke. I'm sorry. But it's my best material. No, but they're still in there. And I've had a remarkable recovery from spinal cord injury. And technically, I'm still an incomplete quadriplegic. I don't have full feeling or dexterity in my hands and my fingers. I lose sensation on my lower half of my body, on my skin. So I lose my balance like up to 50 times a day. So like balance, coordination, agility is difficult. my strength and capacity takes so much work to maintain, and I deal with pain on a daily basis, but I am so lucky. I'm like maybe the luckiest of the unlucky. No one's lucky to have a spinal cord injury, but I am grateful every single day for my good fortune.
Yeah, because the studio we're in right now is upstairs and you walked up here, no problem.
Yeah, most places in the world are not accessible, talk about like, most buildings aren't, but when you start thinking about nature, a sandy beach is a no-go, cobblestone pathway is a no-go in a wheelchair, or really difficult. You're not going down on river walks or hiking or, skiing. Adaptations are required for all of it. And when I get to do some of the simplest things, like you say, like walking up a flight of stairs into a building, sometimes it catches me and I just feel so lucky.
What is the percentage of like recovery from an injury like that? Like I've never heard of this before, so it's got to be obviously pretty rare.
Me neither.
It is certainly becoming less and less rare now, which is awesome with modern medical practices, and there's better research being done right now. I believe that eventually spinal cord injuries will be recoverable on a much grander scale, but right now it's still a very small percentage of people that once you have a spinal cord injury get better. So it's not lost on me how unique mine is. Like, I don't know if it's 1 in a million, 1 in 10 million, or 1 in 1,000, but
yeah,
it's not tons.
Do you have like the medical industry reaching out to you being like, how did you do this?
Studies and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Interestingly, yes. And it's happened quite recently where in Kelowna at UBC Okanagan, they have like 16 different, they call them labs, but it's under the same sort of umbrella for spinal cord injury research. I teamed up with Chris West on a project. I'm the community representative or the community partner from the spinal cord injury community as a consultant on a clinical trial for quadriplegics to try to reduce the secondary injury that occurs via swelling in the spine for people that have had acute injuries. So we've got a grant going right now, and hopefully within the year we'll be testing a clinical trial to try to reduce that acute secondary injury, which is part of the reason why I recovered. I had prompt attention from the medical team, and my surgery was in 8.5 hours after my spinal cord injury. So that secondary injury that I'm talking about that happens usually delayed within the first 12 to 36 hours of swelling, that was reduced significantly in mine just because of how quickly they got it. But most people don't get into surgery that fast. I was lucky. Yeah. And so how can we do an intervention before then medicinally to try to prevent that swelling from happening? And that's our game plan. But yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's amazing, but let's not take anything away from what you did mentally too. Like, I know speaking to you, and you mentioned it already, is gratitude, like how that has really impacted the healing stage. Yeah, maybe elaborate on that.
Awfully astute of you, because I actually pitched an idea to Chris West at UBCO where I was like, we should do a psychologically driven study to test how mindset and getting your body into a place of homeostasis with good chemistry in your brain and body that's driven through the mind could activate better healing. Because I know in my case, tools like gratitude and shifting my psychology opened the door to healing. It wasn't just that I had a mechanism of injury and surgery that made it recoverable. My healing has been extraordinary, and I've often walked this thin line between how much of it was surgical intervention and how much of it was psychological intervention. And I've had some people in my life, some great mentors say, like, what's telling you that it's not where your mindset was in all of this? And so I've been leaning into that, and I would like to study it personally to get definite data on it and do an empirical study. But for me, I'm like, I know that the gift of gratitude was so significant for helping me heal.
Yeah. Well, and how did you get to that stage? Like, obviously, I'm sure there was a very dark time, whether it was weeks or months or but like, that would be a pretty tough reality to come out of not to come out of the hospital, but to come out of surgery and be like, shit, like what's next? Like how long did it take and how did you figure that out? Did you have books or somebody like coach you like, hey man, this is where we're at and this is where the mindset we need to get to?
I legitimately stumbled across the power of gratitude. Like it wasn't an intentional practice, but given the uniqueness of my situation, like I'd had a devastating spinal cord injury where I was told by medical professionals, prepare yourself because you're probably never going to walk again. In fact, you will be lucky if you get back the use of your arms. And that did not include my hands at the time, which also weren't working. So it's like, whoa. After surgery, my arms did start working. I could close my elbows. So I had bicep function. Yeah, when I woke up the next day, that had changed.
Wow.
And I couldn't open my elbows. So I had bicep function, which closes it. Tricep opens the elbow. You probably haven't had to think about that for a while. Most people don't, but I had to start reprogramming my body. So I was sending these messages all the time, and when my arms started to move, it took me almost 2.5 weeks before I could lift my hand to actually touch my face. So like when I say they could move, they weren't moving a lot. It was still very difficult, and my legs came back a little bit slower. But when I did start to change and my physical body started to recover, it was like wave after wave of thank goodness, like, oh, what a relief, like something is, and every little bit of physical recovery was an opportunity for me to feel this overwhelming gratitude to a point where the first time I brushed my teeth, which was at 21 days, where I could reach my hand up high enough now to touch my face, they put this big rubber stopper on my toothbrush, and I was able to brush my teeth for the first time, kind of had like lobster claw grip, no individual finger dexterity. I couldn't use my wrists. So I had to get the toothbrush around to every tooth. I had to use my tongue actually to get it just to be at the right angle and everything. But with a nurse there, I was in a neck collar. I couldn't get my wheelchair close enough to the sink. They had a bucket for me and they had to do the taps and everything like that. But so it wasn't exactly like I was brushing my own teeth, but I was brushing my own teeth, doing something, the first thing I'd been able to do for myself and my self-care in 3 weeks. And I was in tears. I was so thankful. I had so much joy in that moment. And brushing your teeth for most people doesn't show up as something on the radar of things you think you take for granted.
Yeah.
I started to notice all of those wins. And when I did, because I couldn't feel much in my body, one of the first things I started to feel was emotion. In my body, when I felt emotion, depression or grief or sorrow, like any of the negative longing for wanting my body back, that was all dark and cold. But whenever I felt joy or bliss, happiness, like even something as simple as like eating a grape and being like, thank goodness I have grapes. Like by the time I made it back to Canada and I was like supported by friends and family members, like in a first world country with a medical system that's not perfect, but it's free and we have it. I was just like, I'm so lucky. So every time I felt gratitude, and especially in poignant moments like that example of brushing my teeth, I would feel these like warm waves rushing over me. And that was some pretty cool neurochemistry, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, a little bit of dopamine, but all this great neurochemistry, which was putting me in a state of homeostasis. And gratitude actually increases your immunoglobulin A molecule, which is like the body's antiseptic. It fights infection and supports your immune system functioning. And when you're in that state of homeostasis, your body can actually divert resources to the proper places for healing, like your autonomic functions or your immune system. And so by having this disposition of gratitude, it was evidently helping me heal. And the chemistry behind it and everything is stuff I've learned since. So at the time, I just kind of was there by accident, but my recovery has been wild.
Yeah. I mean, good for you, man. I feel like a lot of people in that position would like focus more on the negative, right? Like be angry, why me kind of thing. But you turned it.
I had those thoughts too, right? Like survivor's guilt and like, why'd this happen to me in the first place? That's not fair. So many of my friends and fellow professional skiers that I grew up skiing with didn't have this happen. And then on the flip side of that coin, it was like, why am I getting better and all these other people around me with spinal cord injuries aren't?
Yeah.
I mean, I went through a lot of dark times It was devastating. I wouldn't wish a spinal cord injury on my worst enemy. Is not something I wish for anybody to have to endure. It was devastating, but there are gifts that can come from it. It just depends on how you look at it.
Yeah. So have you kind of translated that knowledge, I guess, now to other aspects in life that gratitude can, kind of resolve a lot of these issues?
Yeah, my go-to is gratitude as a foundation for resilience, which is a bit counterintuitive. And it doesn't matter if you're in the real estate space or another profession, or if you're just wanting to get more out of life. Like, gratitude helps us frame setbacks in the grand scheme of things and realize that things just aren't as bad as we often think they are. And we all have a negativity bias within us that when we do encounter adversity or setbacks, it consumes a lot of our attention. And you think about it in life, business though, but it feels worse proportionately to lose $100 than it does proportionally feel good to make $100.
Yeah.
Once you've got it. Like, once I was on an Air Canada flight flying to from a speaking gig, and it was one of the first flights where Air Canada had released in-flight Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And I was sitting near the front of the plane, surrounded by other people that are business people in their own right. And everybody's like thrilled when the head flight attendant came out and said, "We're so excited to announce that we have our in-air Wi-Fi on this flight today. And as the first group, you're going to get to use it for free." People were like standing up in their chairs, like clapping, cheering. And I was like, cool, this is nice. And then it was like 10 or 15 minutes later of people trying to get online, where the flight attendant comes back out and she's like, "I'm sorry to let you know, but the in-flight Wi-Fi isn't working." And man, the look on everybody's face is like they had just been wronged. There was all this, "Oh, Air Canada, this," like it was like a few moments ago, you were just happy, normal people. All of a sudden you were elevated and then you crashed to rock bottom. We weight positive and negative events differently. We all have a negativity bias within us, and we can beat it. It's within all of us. It's a bias. I think it's evolutionary. A really authentic way to beat it is with gratitude and fortify your mindset, because if you look for the gifts, not the gaps, in any situation, you're going to attract more of that positivity. For one, you'll be more open to it. Your chemistry changes, like literally your physiology changes. You'll be a warmer person, more coachable, more approachable. So many benefits like that. But it's a huge reframe on the exact same situation that is causing you grief. You can look at it and be like, what in this situation do I have to feel thankful for? It's like the glass is half full metaphor, but you're looking at a similar set of circumstances just through a different lens, which is authentically positive and can actually change your chemistry. And if you can change your physiology, if you change your state, you can change the story you tell yourself about that situation, so you can change the strategy with which you approach the solution. It's incredibly powerful, and it's overlooked, or maybe not even looked at all, as a resilience tool, because it's counterintuitive when you're feeling low to think about all that you have to feel thankful for.
Yeah.
Because of that negativity bias, we get sucked in. Woe is me. Why me? Those types of things. So,
well, and especially I find right now, like in the past 4 or 5 years, at least business related or life related, like it's a pretty volatile time in life. Things are busy. People's businesses are struggling. The economy's like, you can just kind of go down that rabbit hole. But I guess the question is like, how do you practice gratitude? Like you said, you get up early and do some reflecting, and like, is there something that you stick to, or a piece of advice you can say, hey, this is like a good starting point. This is what people should do. Or is it just like all day, every day, like make sure you recenter yourself on gratitude?
It's a very good question. I'm so glad you brought it up, because how do you practice gratitude? How do most people practice gratitude? We might have, a round discussion at the table at dinner one night where you say, okay, kids, what are you thankful for? Some people keep gratitude journals. That's a common one. Gratitude triggers, or things that remind you in your day. That's one I actually like. because if there's something in your day that can trigger you to feel thankful, then I think that's valuable. Because if you ask most people that try journaling, it doesn't really work for gratitude journals. Like a lot of people say, well, yeah, I kind of get some benefit out of it, because the thing that's missing is feeling grateful. If you just think about the things that you have to feel thankful for and you kind of categorize or collect this list, you might get a little bit of benefit out of it. But if you want your chemistry to change, like if you want the benefits of oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, like I said, a bit of dopamine, those are neurotransmitters that connect different synapses in your brain. You are literally changing the way that your mind thinks to look for silver linings or opportunities. Likewise, if you produce that chemistry in your body and the endorphins, it actually counteracts a stress response. You can't feel stressed and thankful at the same time. So oxytocin is like the love drug, right? You seek out connection and people like that you wouldn't necessarily if you didn't have that chemistry. Serotonin is the happiness drug or happiness hormone, and that's an incredibly powerful neurotransmitter, especially for combating depression. And so you can actually feel thankful, create that chemistry, and change the way that you look at your situation based on how you're feeling. And so for me, when I say to practice gratitude, it's a feeling. And you can feel it in the morning during reflection, if that's like just a momentary mindful break that you take, or even at night, especially if you've had a stressful day. You can actually turn every day, even your bad days, into good days if you end it with a gratitude audit. Whereas most people have a bad day for like 1 or 2 negative interactions, conversations, tough negotiation that you didn't feel like you performed as well as you would have liked to in, or maybe there's a challenge with your spouse or kids or, someone else that's outside your professional life. And we hold on to that stuff. You need to release it, and then you can shift to gratitude. One more point I should make that's really important on this, and it'll probably be the next place we take the conversation to, is how you handle negativity. Because if you don't actually deal with some of the negative thinking that you have going on, or if there is a situation in your life that is truly bad or a bad day, if you just try to suppress it with gratitude, that also isn't a strategy I would suggest. You need to release the negative or process it, because I'll ask you guys this. What would you have more benefit from? Having more positive thoughts or fewer negative ones? What would you tell me?
I don't know. Maybe negativity bias, we weight the negative ones more, so probably less negative ones.
Yeah, you're right. And maybe that's why I set up that question pretty well. Most people want to be optimistic and they're like, oh, more positive, right? But the answer truly is like fewer negative, because your negative thoughts and beliefs are the only ones that can hold you back, limit you, or keep you stuck. If you don't deal with the negativity or let emotional content process, then shifting to gratitude right away, it's like the second step in that process. And so you asked me, how do you practice gratitude? There are a number of different ways to practice it and close that loop out by feeling it. But if you don't deal with the underlying negative beliefs, whether it's about scarcity or uncertainty or self-doubt, am I capable of doing this? I'm not great at sales. I don't know if I have what it takes to achieve my goals. Like all of that negative thinking needs to be dealt with before you can move to something positive that supports your growth.
Yeah. Here's a very relative question, I guess, for all of us. But yeah, so congratulations. You're going to be a new father soon.
Yes.
Matt, congratulations. Second new father soon. Emily and I, my wife, we were talking about this quite a bit actually, because like we've got 2 kids, happy, healthy, doing a lot of fun stuff. But sometimes you're like, why are you not more grateful? Like, man, like I had a good upbringing, but like not all the things that we're providing for our kids. Yeah. I'm like, so like we were up at Big White all weekend this weekend with our son and daughter and friends, and, take our son to ski school and stuff. I'm like, hey man, yeah, you like skiing? Yeah, cool. We're going to go tomorrow. No, And that like he'll just throw a tantrum over whatever. How do you teach gratitude at a young age? You know, because they're so volatile. Like they'll be like emotions are on their sleeve, right? Best day ever, worst day ever, over like the smallest things. And maybe this is a question you'll approach in like a year from now, but have you ever thought of like, how do you install gratitude at a younger age? How do you provide like the platform for them to deal with like the negative and the positive to close that loop?
I think in general, we need contrast of perspective. So if it's all good all the time, it's still a flat line. It's like, you need a little bit of ups and downs, peaks and valleys. And so the fact that there are times where it's euphoric and incredible and bliss and happiness, and then times where it's not that, and it could be quite the opposite, like a full day of tantrums or, that contrast is valuable for anybody to learn to appreciate the good times and appreciate things that are wonderful. Now, I think in like terms of fundamentals, you can teach, say please and thank you all the time. And I would imagine even with young people, I haven't tried this. I've done it with some elementary school groups when I've spoken to them. I do a mindfulness exercise. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But trying to get them to feel thankful for like their parents or things they really love to do, and just, have them sit with that for a minute and feel it would be a strategy to approach that with. I think it's got to be a bit of trial and error, and then leading by example. Most of what kids learn is like what I call caught behavior. I was talking about this earlier today, what's taught versus caught for raising children, and how much do you actually teach them versus how much are they absorbing by, watching you and so on. Like it's setting an example and truly feeling it that way. And so for us, how do we feel thankful when things are, so good, but we're still caught up in, wanting more or feeling like we're not moving forward enough, perhaps, or generally feeling like a lack of lust for life because maybe we haven't had many of those ups and downs lately and it has been a bit flatlined. Even if it's flatlined and you're at like a, 4 out of 10 or an 8 or a 9 out of 10 for where you would think happiness lives, if it's flat, it's flat. I think it's a societal issue though with comparison. And especially in hustle culture, when you're trying to build things, build your professional life, your career, your net worth, your access to fulfilling activities. Like if you're in a place where you're fortunate to move towards financial freedom, or that's what your goal is, you're still comparing ahead or up. So you're comparing from where you are in this moment now to where you want to be in the future yourself, or up ahead to where someone else is who's at like chapter 100 in their story and you're at like chapter 30 of yours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We rarely utilize comparison in a healthy way, where if we compare back to where we came from, and for most people, and I know this isn't an original idea or anything like that, but if you were to look back 5 years and to realize where you are now, you've probably achieved most of the goals that you had set out for yourself 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, you would be like, rock on, man, like giving you a pat on the back and being like, you're nailing it. And yet we're like, oh, looking to 5 years ahead me still. Like we're conditioned to be in that state. But if you compare back to where you came from, and I don't recommend this, but I think it's more of an awareness, because I'm like, don't compare down all the time, but be aware of where you're at. Because, and I think you alluded to it at the start, like I grew up in such a great household, or in the Okanagan. Like for me, that's where I grew up. I was like, this is, an epicenter of awesomeness. Like so lucky to get to live here. And so like understanding where you're at, because in the hospital, when I was getting better from my spinal cord injury, I saw plenty of people that weren't. And so I had that contrast in perspective there, right, where I was like, oh goodness, like if I don't give everything I've got to this recovery, like there's so many people that would kill for the opportunity too.
Yep.
Anyway, I don't know if that answered your question. I kind of went on a bit of a tangent.
Man, I'm impressed that Taylor's like a full dad now. You're like one step away from telling them that you had to walk 10 feet of snow uphill to school both ways.
Yeah. Well, the caught and taught thing is so powerful. Man, they are like sponges in everything. But I guess if you take that mindset like throughout life with friends and family, and like, you know, we're no different. Yeah, we're aged obviously, and we're a little bit probably, you know, less malleable to that, but like people still like feel your energy and then drive what you're driving, right? So
yeah, it's applicable beyond raising children, right? Like,
yeah, totally. And
I just have that meme in my head where it's like, it's a Sunday morning, it smells like cinnamon pancakes, the favorite cartoons are on, the snow is lightly falling, and the 3-year-old is blind with rage.
yeah, but you're blind with rage because you're a 3-year-old. Yeah. I mean, you're probably right. They don't have a lot to compare it to, right? It's like life's pretty cruisy for them.
And let it happen, let it process. Because the moment you start trying to suppress that, or being like, oh, you can't feel angry, or you can't have this momentary tantrum, is like they're learning emotional regulation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what the environment is like. If your mindset is like, it doesn't matter how much you tell them in that moment to like calm down, because their experience is their experience, that emotional rage, even though if it's like on all accounts, you're looking at it like, why is this happening? This shouldn't be.
It's an awesome conversation right now, because like even in my head, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, where's the gratitude in that? And you're like, well, grateful like my son's able to throw a tantrum, you know, and he's here. And like a lot of, like you said, people can't have families. Yeah.
Also grateful that you're setting the baseline for his life pretty high.
Yeah. And easy for me to say at 3:00 after a good day and had a coffee and he's at daycare. And then when it's bedtime tonight, try and instill that. No, man, I'm stoked you want to read another book for the 5th time and you're yelling at me. But yeah, it's good. It's powerful stuff. I love it.
It is called a practice though for a reason. And I really do believe that like you've got to feel it. You got to close out that loop. You've got to cut out negativity if that's what's holding you back. And like maybe tell yourself a different story before you can actually start feeling thankful for your present situation or the one you're about to have, and open yourself up to that reality with like authentic gratitude. But the opportunity to like shift mentally in times where it is really difficult, it falls back on a bit of practice. Like you need some repetitions before it becomes the default mindset. Mm-hmm. But when it does, it's pretty awesome. I still have to work on it now, because the farther I get out from my accident, the harder it gets some days, you know?
Yeah.
I'm human as well with all this. But.
So with your injury, is your injury always getting better? Like, is there a regression risk, or like, how does that look for you?
It's interesting because my neurological picture plateaued what it felt like between like year 2 and 3 in recovery.
Oh, okay.
Like my sensation on my body hasn't changed, but I have continued pushing really hard, setting big physical objectives and goals to try to keep myself reaching the next level of what I can handle physically. And my capacity has continued getting better and better, like with endurance training and skiing and stuff like that. I'm back in the mountains and doing it in a way that if you would ask me 11 years ago if I thought it were possible, I probably would have told you no. So I've even beat some of the expectations or achieved some of the things that I didn't even think were possible. So I'm pretty stoked. But it's been a physical plateau, like in neurological sense, but not in terms of what I've been able to accomplish. I've set some pretty lofty goals. So
yeah,
good for you.
And I mean, so many other challenges and achievements you have to make now too, right? Like, so where's business at now? You're coaching, training other people, business people, just mostly on mindset now? Like, or are you helping on recovery on injuries as well? Like, who are you mostly speaking to and working with?
In my speaking and like consulting or coaching role, it's more like organizations. And I've worked with some individuals one-on-one, but it's primarily like sharing a message of resilience and gratitude and team building, shared vision, leadership, managing uncertainty, organizational transformation. I do all that from the stage typically, or like online. And so I've spoken in front of like 40,000 people in audiences over the last 6 or 7 years. It's been a lot of fun traveling to do talks and conferences and stuff like that. But as of recently, I've just shifted gears more into the mental health space, and I've started a new company called Gratus Health. Gratus is Gratus. That's the Latin origin for grateful. My goal is to get into integrative health and support people from mind and body, like psychosomatic healing, people that are either struggling with a physical presentation, that their physical healing is encumbered by their psychology because they haven't got to that place where their mind and body, a place that's open to heal. So help them with mental blocks. Or if people's physical presentation is directly linked to their psychology because of something like trauma that they're holding in the body or emotional suppression, chronic pain and stuff like that, even as much as like functional neurological disorder, I've helped cure non-epileptic seizures. So I've had a client that went from having like 3 to 4 non-epileptic seizures a week related to trauma down to about 1 close call a month, where they can start to recognize a seizure coming on and then with psychology take themselves back from the edge and prevent it from even happening. So I'm really excited with Gratus Health is going to bring about in terms of blending mind and body healing. So
Awesome.
Good for you. Mm-hmm. Before we jump into our wrap-up questions here, tell us about the Kelowna Marathon.
Oh man, I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, this year I ran the Kelowna Marathon.
Yeah,
I didn't know how hard it was going to be. It's like marathons are such a huge physical challenge to overcome for anybody, but let alone somebody who had a spinal cord injury. And I've done a fair bit of running over the years, but nothing to that extent. And I would like to share with people that you're capable of more than you think you are, or you can do more than you think you can do. You may have heard that, but I subscribe to the idea that you can do as much as you think you can do. So your mindset and all this is so important. And for me, setting a goal like doing a marathon was preposterous initially. And even once I got into the training, I was like, man, why did I even start doing this? It's way too hard. But the goal was set and I ended up completing the race. Yeah. And man, it is true that if you choose to change your mind about a certain situation and believe that you've got it within yourself to push through, or that if it's not working out right now, it'll always work out, because things always work out. Like that feeling of I'm just not finished yet, I just need to keep going. If you truly believe that you've got it within yourself to achieve your goals or succeed on the backside of adversity, that to me was like the epitome of that. And if everybody out there who's listening to it could take that away, I'd say this would be a big success for me in this whole conversation. It's like, you've got it within yourself. Like, trust that you're capable of as much as you think you are. So aim high.
Man, you're going to run out of big stuff to do. Like, you're just ticking off everything, hey? Like, that's impressive.
Yeah, I think being a family man is the next big thing.
That is a marathon.
Yeah, train for a marathon with a young child.
Yeah,
that's the next.
It's going to be wild.
Challenge, yeah.
All right. Well, we'll dive into our wrap-up stuff here. If you could buy a property in the Okanagan in the next 12 months, what would it be?
My desire would be to have land, privacy, and a view. So I would look at something potentially in Lake Country up on the hill overlooking Okanagan, or even Kelowna Mission would be phenomenal. I love Kelowna. I'm from the North Okanagan, but I've definitely started to feel more like Kelowna is home these days. But I would look for something where I have a little bit of privacy, a view of the water and the mountains around here is part of why we live here.
Yeah.
And that would be my go-to for sure.
Nice.
If you could give your 20-year-old self any advice, what would it be?
I would tell my 20-year-old self to not be so hard on yourself. I was in a sport and a career that it was like very much about performance and hitting metrics. And in fact, this is very vulnerable and for me to even share it, but I gave up on my competitive dreams too soon. And I wish I could have gone back and said, stay persistent, stay in it, and believe in yourself, because you're capable of as much as you think you are. Yeah. And your thoughts are directly related to those self-beliefs. So believe that you have it within yourself to achieve the things that you want to achieve.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people have probably call it a little bit too early. What's the worst that can happen? You're going to have a bit more fun in life and, do something you love. So yeah, good for you.
Yeah, it's like so much growth lies on the backside of that uncertainty and risk. It's like that's where the magic is.
Yeah. What's your favorite charity, or how do you give back?
My favorite charity, that one's easy, is the Wings for Life Foundation. And my big give back every year is organizing a World Run event. I'm doing one here in Kelowna this year on May 4th. It's a 4 a.m. run. So for those of you that don't like getting out of bed, this is going to be extra special for you because you'll be living outside your comfort zone. But it's definitely
May the 4th be with you there.
Yeah, 4 a.m. on May the 4th. But I team up with the Okanagan Lifestyle crew, Jackson and Ryan and their team. They open up their doors, the venue. That's where everybody meets. And then we set off from there. But it's a charity for spinal cord injury research. It's all about running for those who can't. There's no minimum or maximum distance. Once you start running, you just want to see how far you can go. 30 minutes after you start running, everybody downloads an app. The finish line actually starts coming after you.
Oh, you got to stay ahead of the finish
You got to stay ahead of the finish line, so you're being chased.
Cool.
Like, for anybody that loves a little bit of an adventure or like, living outside their comfort zone, because nobody wants to get up and start running at 4 a.m.
Does the finish line just get faster and faster?
Yes.
Nice.
And so after 30 minutes of it going, it goes from 15 kilometers an hour to 16. So most people surprise themselves with how far they can actually go. A lot of people run like 10Ks that don't normally run 10Ks. And some people that are used to running a little bit run like 15 to 20. It's all for spinal cord injury research. And we're having an event in Kelowna in May, and it's run all around the world. It's the biggest running event on the planet. There's like 280,000 people approximately that ran it together last year at the exact same time. That's why it starts at 4 a.m. in our time zone. We just have
crazy.
Yeah, we don't have the best time zone for it, but it's a shotgun start around the world. It's a very, very cool project.
That's an awesome. That's a nice event.
Yeah, you guys should come out.
Yeah.
4 a.m.
I would love to. I'm doing the BMO half that day.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I'll be with you there.
the challenge.
Just double up. It probably doesn't start till 9.
Yeah.
I'll just run to Vancouver.
We've got some great groups, like Accessible Okanagan is going to come out for the spinal cord injury community, and North End Run Group. Like, they've got a lot of members that we're going to try to pull out this year and get a bunch of people just to get together and do some good exercise activism, I like to call it.
Awesome.
Nice.
How can Taylor or I or our listeners help you? What can we do for you?
Live with a little bit more gratitude in your daily life. And if you want to find me and connect, I'm pretty easy to find. My website's mikeshawski.com. So mikeshawski, SKI.com. And you find me on Instagram or find a copy of my book, whatever. Reach out to me, connect. I love to have conversations with people in our community, especially if I can support you in any way and related to what we talked about here today. That'd be amazing.
I love it, man.
Awesome, man. It's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Grateful that you're here.
Yeah.
Grateful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay, have a good one.
You too.